What's up, world? I'm Matthew Madeline Ferguson Casciola, better known to the GO community as MMF. This is the Cash Stash, which I promised a friend I'd bring back for this video. This is the logo of the greatest team in Major League Baseball, and this is my 5th place GoFormat.com World Championship deck profile, in which I will be discussing the deck I used this past weekend to get 5th place at the inaugural GoFormat.com World Championships. For those that don't know, that is the place you get when you lose in losers quarters of a double elimination tournament, which is what I did last weekend when I got 5th place at the GoFormat.com World Championships. As you can see, the deck in front of you is an empty jar deck. For those that didn't know, I am in fact the best living empty jar player in the GO community. I inherited that title from my teammate Ludwig a long time ago. I've been playing the deck for a long time because I believe it's the best deck in the format, and I've written extensively on the subject elsewhere, as you can see in my 2nd place Format Library Championship 9 tournament report, which you can find at GoFormat.com. I know Jinzo&Tonic has another video with ACP's empty jar deck that went up pretty recently that y'all probably already watched, so I don't think I need to get into the decks like bread and butter combos. I'm not going to rehash any of that. I'm going to assume y'all know the basics of how the deck works, but there are a lot of specific card choices to cover here, so I'm going to do that now. Starting off with the core of the deck, you got 2 jars, Cyber and Morphing, 6 books, 3 Moon, 3 Taiyu, 3 Spell Reproduction, 3 Shallow Grave, 1 Card Destruction, and 1 Serial Spell. These are the cards I think are essential to any empty jar deck. For the most part, if it doesn't have these, it's probably not an empty jar deck. Moving into more of the engine, we've got 3 Thunder Dragons, Graceful Charity, and 3 Reloads. You see this engine getting a lot of play in Chaos Turbo and Chaos Control. An empty jar gets to do the same thing with it, except it's more powerful because you just straight up kill your opponent without giving them a turn. And it's more consistent because you get to play Reload on top of Charity and Card Destruction to fix your hands more. Mystic Tomato and Sangan. 3 Mystic Tomato, it's not necessary, but it generally makes it into the list, especially in the current metagame, where Dekoichi is such a big deal. If you look on the top 8 player profiles for Worlds, the winner, Ricardo Lari, he talks about how important 3 Dekoichi is to the Chaos Turbo deck, and with Tomato, you can crash into a flip Dekoichi. Not only do you take away their 1400 beat stick, but you also set up your own combos by getting either a Cyber Jar or a Sangan, depending on the rest of your hand. And then finally the Spice. The 3 main deck Mind Controls. Mind Control is huge right now. It's seeing a lot of side deck play, and occasionally you'll see maybe like 1 or 2 in the main board. Normally, it's a side deck staple in empty jar anyways, because it helps you play through Necomane King with Cyber Jar loops, because Necomane King won't trigger if it's sent from your side of the field to their graveyard. And we'll talk more about that later. But I decided to main 3 copies here because I knew Turbo was going to be so big, and it lets me use all of their best weapons against them. Again, like Ricklar says, they're very reliant on Dekoichi and Magician of Faith as well. And with Mind Control, you're not only stopping them from getting those effects off, but you're getting the effects yourself. So at the very worst, you're getting an Upstart effect out of it if it's Dekoichi, or you're getting like a Trinity piece back with Faith, or maybe just whatever combo pieces in the grave that you need. If they start to go in on you with Chaos Monsters, Sorcerer, or BLS, you can Mind Control those and banish them with their own effects to buy yourself some more time. And if they're forced to summon a flip effect with your Shallow Grave, because of a quirk in the Summoning Sickness rulings in Go format, you can actually Mind Control that and flip it up in the same turn. Because the rules that you can change the battle position of a monster, the turn it's summoned, if it was summoned by the opponent of the turn player, which it is in the case of Shallow Grave. For all of these reasons, the deck is absolutely ridiculous against Turbo, and that is the main reason I played it this past weekend. For everyone that's been spending this whole year whining about how Chaos is so dominant, Chaos is so unbeatable, it's a 1-deck format, there's no diversity, this is the deck that's going to force Chaos Turbo out of the metagame as soon as people are willing to play it, I swear to God. You have more than enough tools to play through all of their hate, and you do all the same things they do, but better. I played against it in like half of my matches, and I did not lose a single match to it. I was sent to losers by Weird Champ, who was playing Bazoo Return, and he needed the Bazoo aggro part of his deck. It wouldn't have worked if he was just playing like Chaos Turbo with a Tech Return or anything like that. Like the 2500 clock was very relevant in the games we played. And I was eliminated by Lazaro, who was on Chaos Control, and he absolutely needed the Chaos Control parts of his deck to win, particularly in Game 3 where he beat me down with a Balter that I just couldn't find an answer to in time, but the rest of my hand would have been pretty good if not for the Balter. So we can move on to the side deck from there. Sort of going to explain what's going on here. The first thing to notice is that when you're the empty jar player, you side answers to their hate, not cards against decks. And that's always the better place to be because threats are better than answers, and you'd rather be the person answering answers than answering threats. This is a privilege that I find it's not completely unique to empty jar, but that you don't see a lot of in some of the more common decks in Go format, like Go Control or Chaos Turbo. And it's generally, in my opinion, a reliable indicator that you're on the better deck when you're the one doing this in a matchup and your opponent is the one having to side specific answer cards against you. So a common misconception is that empty jar just straight up loses to Neko Mane King out of the side deck. Like it can never beat it. You just throw 3 Neko Mane King in your side deck and you never lose to it. And that's not true at all. Like I said with Mind Control, you can use Mind Control to keep your Cyber Jar loops going through a Neko Mane King. And you can use Prohibition to keep your Morphing Jar loops going through a Neko Mane King. On top of that, when you side in Neko, every Neko you draw is a card that isn't going to help you actually close out the game against the jar player. It gives them more turns to draw these cards to deal with the Neko since you're struggling to kill them and they're drawing deeper and deeper into their deck. The better bet, in my opinion, is actually basically just like a bunch of trap cards and beat sticks. Just keeping it simple. So I side 2 Decrees to blank things like Solemn Judgment and Trap Dust Shoot and Mind Crush and Curse the Old Forbidden Spell and all that kind of stuff. And I side Level Limit Area B and Gravity Bind to at least buy me a lot of time against things like Blade Knight and Dark Altar. I never played against anything that used Spell Canceller, namely like Reasoning Gate. So I didn't get to use the Black Luster Soldier or the new Dorias. I didn't really play against many Dark Altar decks. I think like the few I played against, 1 or 2, there were particular card choices that made me want to side other things instead. And Compulse is also really good in the empty jar mirror, but surprise, surprise, it didn't play against any of those. There are more possible side deck options here. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to bore you all with that. Mainly, just try the deck out. It can be hard to get the hang of at first, especially when you get to the situations where you can't just do the bread and butter combos. You have to start in a weird place and end at a weird place. But it gets better and better with more experience, and it is very well positioned in the current metagame. Again, this is the deck that's going to force Chaos Turbo out of the metagame. You just have to be willing to play it. And so that's all I've got for everyone. If you like this video, be sure to check me out on Twitter and Twitch. The usernames are going to be listed below. Be sure to check us all out on GoFormat.com. And now, if you'll excuse me, yeah, I'm just going to go shave this shit off. I mean, this looks ridiculous.